Today on Larry King Now, Oscar Pistorius, the Blade Runner, an Olympian, on his cheetah legs.
In 2008, I missed the Olympic qualification by less than a quarter of a second, and I said, to myself that I'll never let that happen again, and I trained extremely hard over the last 4 years and managed to qualify.
On Fame.
You walk out into an arena with 80,000 people, and it's absolutely mind-blowing. I think it becomes a very addicted feeling that you just want to feel every day.
Plus,
I grew up participating only in able-bodied sports, and until I was 17 I'd never participated in the Paralympic events. I was a bit sad when I had my first Paralympic Games because I realized how much I'd missed out. There's definitely a camaraderie and an ethos between the Paralympic athletes which is unparalleled.
That's next on Larry King Now. Welcome to Larry King Now. Our guest, Oscar Pistorius, the South African sprinter, the first double-leg amputee to participate in the 2012 Summer Olympic Games in London. And although he is a double-leg amputee, he's the current record holder in the 200 and 400-meter T44 Paralympic events. That's for single below-the-knee amputees. Thank you for coming, Oscar.
Thank you, sir.
How did you lose your legs?
Larry, I was born with missing fibula, which is one of the bones between your knee and your ankle. So when I was 11 months old, I had my legs amputated. And when I was 13 months old, I got my first pair of prosthetic legs and basically grew up not really thinking I had much of a disability, to be honest.
So you had prosthetic legs at what age?
I started from 13 months, and at 17 months I started walking on them. So in the beginning I was just crawling around with them and getting used to them, and just really grew up in a very normal kind of family setting. My parents never let me believe that I had anything that I had to hold back from, or that could hold me back.
As you grew, they had to give you different size prosthetics, right?
Yeah, so I had, in the beginning I had, the prosthetic leg didn't even have a foot on it. It was just like a cylindrical cone that fitted over my stump and got used to the kind of the pressure around the limb. And then when I was just over 2 years old, I got my very first pair, and we didn't have cool sneakers in those days. I had little Mickey Mouse shoes that I thought were great. But yeah,
now you wear anything, right?
Yeah, no, I just wear pretty much. You can take them off and put them on. They're quite easy.
Do you take the legs off every night?
I do, actually. I do, and I was in boarding school, and obviously we shared a room of 24 guys. And one night I put my legs under my bed, and at about 2 a.m. I got woken up by the guy next to me, and he was shaking me, and he said, "Oh, the building's on fire! The building's on fire!" And I woke up, and I could see the flames on the bed, and up on the locker. And all my friends were running out of the door. And I got very nervous, and obviously the first thing I thought about is I need to put on my prosthetic legs. So I reached over and I looked on the floor, and they weren't where I usually left them. And I looked on the other side, and they weren't there. And I was going into a flat spin panic. And after a couple of seconds, when I was just about ready to be panicked and give up, the flames disappeared, and these guys came storming in, and they'd thrown lighter fluid on the locker and decided to hide my prosthetic legs, and they thought this was a great practical joke.
Some kind of gag. Well, those South Africans, you never know.
Yeah.
Are you married?
No, I'm not. No.
All right, you sprinted into history. What made you compete?
I've always been very competitive. We grew up in South Africa, and sport's a very big part of any kid's life and upbringing there. When I was playing rugby when I was 16, I had a knee injury, and part of my sport rehabilitation in 2004 in the beginning of the year was to get involved in a track program. So I met up with a coach there, and he got me running. And after a couple of months, I just really got stuck into it, and little did I know that he'd enter me into small competitions. He told me he was monitoring my progress for rugby, but he was actually getting me to qualify for the 2004 Paralympic Games. And yeah,
the Paralympics are separate, of course, from the Olympics.
Yeah.
They are held when?
They're usually held parallel to the Olympic Games, so usually 2 to 3 weeks afterwards.
But you also competed in the Olympics, right?
Yeah, so in 2008, I missed the Olympic qualification by less than a quarter of a second, and I said, to myself that I'll never let that happen again, and I trained extremely hard over the last 4 years, and in the build-up to this year, we had a very strict qualification criteria in South Africa, but I managed to qualify and represent my team and my country and I ran in the 400 and the 400 relay in London and in the Olympic Games, and it was one of the most amazing experiences.
How did you do?
I did well. I made the semi-final, which was good for me. I was ranked 17th in the world this year, so the semi-final was fine, and I ran my third fastest time ever. And then we made the relay final, which was a dream come true. So
did you win a medal?
I didn't, unfortunately not. But I had a really phenomenal time being out there and just enjoying my time.
Therefore, you can run. Well, the one thing you won't get an ankle injury, right?
No.
You're devoid of ankle injury. You won't get an Achilles, right?
No, not anytime soon anyway.
Was the team event harder for you than the single?
I think the team event definitely adds a certain aspect of pressure, because you don't want to let the guys down. I was there representing South Africa on an individual basis, and if I failed at that, I would have only had myself to blame. Yet there were 4 other guys on the team that were only there for the relay event, and that was their moment to do well. So you don't want to let anyone down, and when you're running 4 guys in a relay, each guy has to cover his part and run an individual race to contribute to the end success. So yeah, you are very stressed. You want to make sure that you execute the perfect race.
What leg did you run?
I ran the anchor leg, the 4th leg, and it's not a very common leg for me. I usually run the second or third leg, and for me it's just it's a good time to make up distance.
Because you have nothing to compare it to, because you've never had legs. So when you're running, what do you feel? You don't have any pain in the exteriors, do you?
No, the prosthetic legs are very comfortable. They're very tight. Obviously, the running prosthetic legs, you could compare them. If you have your shoes, you have your running shoes, you have your sprinting spikes, you've got your hiking boots. Every type of shoe has a different purpose, and it has its own qualities, its own pros and its own cons. So the running prosthetic leg is light. It's very it's sports specific. It's
different from the daily leg.
Very different, yeah. It's got a carbon fiber setup. It's a carbon fiber. It looks like an upside down question mark, and at the bottom it's got a Nike sole. So it's got spikes on the bottom for added grip, especially in the wet conditions. And the fit is very tight, so it doesn't have any displacements of energy inside the actual socket. So it's not very comfortable, but it's definitely performance orientated.
Coming up, the Blade Runner, as he's called, talks about these cheetah legs that made history. Stay with us. We're back with the extraordinary Oscar Pistorius, who ran the Olympics, won in the Paralympics. What was it like to walk into the stadium with the team?
It was pretty special. I mean, you walk out into an arena with 80,000 people, and it's absolutely mind blowing. I think it becomes a very addicted feeling that you just want to feel every day. And when you're training on the track and you're putting in the hard graft, it's obviously what you think about. And for any sportsman, it's really an amazing opportunity to run in front of a crowd like that.
Were the Paralympics also held in London?
Yes, they're held in the same venue. And
always that's the true, wherever they'll be in Brazil in 4 years?
Much, yes.
Will you compete in Brazil?
I will do. I'll be 29 then, so sprinters usually peak between 27 and 30. So I'll be in good stead then, hopefully, to run of my quickest times.
How often do you train?
Off season, so between October and April, we train between 9 and 13 sessions a week. And then in season, when we come to Europe, we'll go to Europe to run. We run we usually train about 6 times a week. So the intensity goes up, but the amount of training sessions comes down.
How do you prepare for a race?
It starts obviously months in advance with the actual training. And then, for the actual event, we fly into a meet usually 2 days before. We've got our press conference and physio appointments scheduled for 2 days leading up to it. All our diets and meals are very important leading up to a race. We go to the track usually during the same, if we're running on a Friday night at 10 o'clock, for argument's sake, we'll go on a Wednesday night at 10 o'clock. We'll feel what the temperature's like, what types of winds we experience in the stadium to plan the race, find out what lane we're in. Then on the Thursday night, we'll do pretty much the same, do a basic warm-up very similar to what we'd need to experience the following night. So by the time the race comes, everything comes, second nature, and it's a lot easier to deal with. And then the actual race itself, we just try and remain as calm as possible and execute a well-delivered plan.
There are some people who claim that these J-shaped, or they call cheetah blades, you use less energy and therefore you have an advantage.
I think that was, it was back in 2007. We had a hearing with the Court of Arbitration for Sport. Initially, the IAAF, which is the body that regulates athletics, claimed that I had an unfair advantage. We took the prosthetic legs and I made myself available for testing. We got a couple of scientists from MIT and conducted months of testing on the prosthetic leg. We found that there was no advantage. So we took the case to the Court of Arbitration for Sport and they ruled in my favor in 2008.
If it were an advantage, you'd win, right?
Well, if there's an advantage, they've made over 30,000 pairs. There would be a lot of other athletes running the similar times, and yet there's no athlete remotely close to the times that I'm running.
You were defeated, I understand, in the 200-meter sprint by Alan Oliveira, right?
Yeah.
Have you competed against him a lot?
I have. I've competed against him.
Where is he from?
He's from Brazil. He's a Brazilian athlete, and that was my first loss ever in the 200 meters. So.
How did you take it?
Not very well, to be honest. It was very heartbreaking for me. I really didn't expect it, and
you called it unfair, right?
Yeah, I did. There's regulations. I follow a very strict regulation when it comes to the prosthetic leg, and I didn't believe that the rules were structured in a way that made the sport fair. I don't think he's by any means a cheat. I think he's a great athlete. But we brought up that issue with the IPC, the International Paralympic Committee, and there's quite a lot of strides that's happening there. And my National Paralympic Committee has taken up the issue with them, and hopefully that issue will be resolved by the World Championships next year.
You think resolved in your favor?
I'd like to believe so. There's a lot of athletes that have had issues with this rule for many, many years, and nothing was done about it. So. There's definitely something that needs to be done.
How many amputee athletes do we know are there? How many compete in the Paralympics?
In the Paralympics, there's probably about, I guess, close on 1,500.
Really?
Yeah.
Men and women?
Men and women, yeah. Some phenomenal athletes, really. Some were really great athletes before they lost their limbs. And some have, obviously had their disabilities from a young age, but just really tremendous sportsmen. I grew up participating only in able-bodied sports, and until I was 17 I'd never participated in the Paralympic events, and I was a bit sad when I had my first Paralympic Games because I realized how much I'd missed out. There's definitely a camaraderie and an ethos between the Paralympic athletes which is unparalleled.
Oscar will talk about his childhood and his special connection with his late mother. That's next on Bullet. We're back on Larry King Now with the extraordinary Oscar Pistorius. Having interviewed in show business blind people who were blind since birth, said they didn't envy people with sight because they didn't know anything else. And some of them didn't want sight. They were just what they were. Were you envious of people who had legs?
Not at all. I think I've been very blessed. I've obviously learned and grown up in a certain way, and I think part of having a disability has shaped me into the person I am, and I like to believe I'm an all-rounded person, and I see my prosthetic leg as you putting on a pair of shoes. I don't see it as anything
so if
important.
Someone said I could give you legs.
I'd rather have a McLaren motor car. If you gave me a legs or a sports car, I think I'd rather go for the sports car.
How did your friends treat you? Were you bullied at all?
No, my friends, very early on in life I learned that the way I perceived myself was the way that other people perceived me. So I never saw myself as having a disability. My parents never pitied me or babied me. And very quickly on in life, I think the other kids in my classroom, they saw me and they thought, okay, this isn't something we used to, but this kid doesn't think he's any different. He plays sports with us. He doesn't look for excuses, out in the field, and it's only a physical disability. And if you don't let it, control your life physically, then it shouldn't be anything to worry about.
Your mother didn't get to see you, right? She died before you participated in the Paralympics?
Yeah, she passed away when I was 15, and I started running when I was 17, but I know she's looking down on me, and I hope she's pretty happy. And she had amazing wisdom. She wrote me a letter just before she passed away, about 2 months before she passed away.
Was she young?
She was 47.
Oh, cancer?
No, she had an allergic reaction to medication that she was on, and
really?
Yeah, unfortunately.
What did the letter say?
She wrote in one of the paragraphs, she said there, train, don't strain, and look after those wonderful legs that run so fast. And I thought that was a great insight from her. You know, I'd never even done sprinting or track, any track
Really?
running. Yes.
Did your dad get to see you compete?
Yeah, I mean, he watches from time to time. So, you know, I'm blessed. I've got a very close relationship with my brother and sister. And my grandmother, she's 90. She was in London, and she came over and watched me compete. And it was such a heart-wrenching moment when I walked out into the stadium. I actually saw her on the second row of the home straight, and immediately I knew everything was going to be pretty good. You know, it was really wonderful to have them there.
Your brother and sister have regular, normal legs?
Yeah, you know, they're pretty normal. My brother's the adrenaline junkie in the family, so if anything, something's not right in his head, but he's pretty okay otherwise.
How do they explain what it was you had when you were born?
There's no explanation really. It's just
Could happen to anyone?
Yeah, it can happen in anyone, and it's not common in the sense that it's 1 in every 35,000 people that it happens to, but there are a lot of cases out there.
Are you the firstborn?
I'm the second born in my family, so my brother is a year and a half older than I am, and my sister's a year and a half younger than I am.
So you've never treated yourself as different?
I guess I never was allowed to in our family. You know, we didn't pity anything, and we didn't pity the situation that I was in. We always looked at the positives in life, and my parents always taught me to be grateful for what I have, rather than being disappointed for what I don't.
Tell me about the tattoo you have.
I've got a tattoo of my mother's, birth date and the date she passed away. She was very important to me, and then I've got a Bible scripture on my back, and
saying?
It's a passage from the book of Corinthians, and it just basically says, you know, that you should subject your body to your mind, and you know, not be someone that preaches a certain tale and doesn't do it yourself. You know, don't condemn others and live a life that doesn't go by what your tongue says.
Do you want to have a family?
I think that's probably one of the greatest things in the world, yeah.
You want to get married?
Most definitely, yeah.
Are you dating anyone special?
I am seeing someone. It's still early days, but she's a wonderful girl.
Does she have any difficulty with it?
No. I mean, I've had, I think that's really been, in the past with any girlfriend that I've had, I think very quickly they've seen that I don't have much of an issue with it, and at least to my knowledge, they haven't had any either.
So it's the routine you've always had all your life. You've never been envious then?
I'm pretty relaxed. I'm not,
You don't see people with legs and say, I wish I was them?
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm pretty okay with my situation.
What other sports did you play?
Well, as a kid, I did cricket and football and boxing and water polo and rugby. And at the moment, I'm playing golf and I do a bit of motocross and a bit of off-road motorbike riding.
Now, I would imagine there'd be some restrictions, say, in golf. You can't pivot off the foot, can you? Or can you?
I can't pivot off the foot, but I wouldn't say I play a great game of golf, but I play a decent game of golf. I was with Michael Phelps last week in Scotland, and he beat me, but we had a wonderful, wonderful couple of days. We played in the Dunhill Links Pro-Am, and I finished 7 under for the competition, so I was doing okay.
Not bad.
Yeah.
What do you want to do when athletics are over?
I've been involved in several landmine victim assistance programs in the past, and it's always been something that's been very important to me.
Where people lose their legs.
Yeah, and it's huge, not only in Africa, I guess, in some of the South American countries, and it's heart-wrenching really to see how many people have lost their limbs after the war, post-civil wars. And I'm developing a prosthetic foot at the moment in conjunction with the University of Strathclyde in Scotland. And this prosthetic foot will be under $600. It's durable. It's between 8 and 12 years durability, and I'm hoping to launch my foundation next year. So,
more about mines and other things in our remaining moments with Oscar right after this. We're back with the extraordinary Oscar Pistorius. We'll have social media questions for him. How many mines, active mines, do we think are still around the world?
I mean, I'm sure there's over, a couple of 100 million. There's about 7 million just in Mozambique. They predict if by the current ways of extracting the mines, it's going to take them about another 65 years just to eradicate landmines there. So it's a massive problem, and it's not even people that were involved, in the conflicts that are losing their limbs. It's teenagers. It's the biggest problem is it's current. It's the age bracket that should be contributing to the economy of those countries. So it really is sad, and it is a problem.
We received many social media questions for you. Here are some. JD from Facebook asks, which was rougher to compete in, the Olympics or the Paralympics?
They were both fairly tough for different reasons. Obviously, it was the same track, the same crowd. The Olympics was difficult in the sense that the 400 is a very tough event to run. 4 races or 5 or 4 races at that distance and that intensity and to stay that focused was quite demanding. But then in the Paralympics, I had 4 events. I had a lot more events, and one of those events was definitely not my speciality, the 100 meters. And although I had a lot of fun running it, I definitely wanted to do a little bit better and at least finish on the podium. So that was a challenge. Both had certain amounts of personal pressure and external pressure. But I really enjoyed both. I mean, I had highlights from both games.
You like 400 better than 100 means you like to come from behind.
Yeah, far more. The 400 is just I'm more comfortable at a high pace.
Gwen and Simon tweeted, do you still play rugby, and if so, how do others tackle you?
If my manager isn't going to watch this, yes, I still play a little bit every now and again with my friends.
You're not supposed to, are you?
Because the prosthetic legs that I wear and I play, most of the other sports that I do have got a very soft cosmesis on the outside, so I won't be giving any of the opposition players any concussion anytime soon.
I know you played water polo growing up, but Jasmine84 wants to know, how do you swim?
I'm quite a strong swimmer, actually. I can't tread water very well just with my legs, but I always enjoyed swimming, and we've got a lot of water in South Africa. We had a family holiday home on one of the rivers in South Africa that I spent a lot of time on, and I guess I swim pretty normally.
Hellier Max tweeted, how many hours a day do you train?
Sprinting training is very different to, say, cycling or swimming. We don't train as many hours, but we train shorter intervals, but very intense. So we train about between 2.5 and 3 hours a day.
Michael Cook from Google asks, have you dealt with discrimination or bullying?
I've got quite a direct approach to that. I feel that a lot of people the stereotypes that are involved with disabilities are usually due to the fact that people aren't educated about disability. And it's not that they want to be rude. If somebody stares at a prosthetic leg or at somebody in a wheelchair, it's just because they don't know. So I take a very direct approach. If I see a child staring at my prosthetic legs and the parent turns the child away, I usually go up to the kid and I'm like, hi, my name's Oscar, and these are my prosthetic legs, and I lost my legs because I didn't eat my vegetables, or I'd make up a story and say a lion bit them off or something. And I show them my prosthetic leg and explain the situation to them, because by a parent just turning a child away, immediately that child knows that that's something they don't talk about, and it's going to bother them for many years. And I think that's the problem that many generations have been doing over and over again. So by educating the younger generations, they grow up knowing what a disability is about, and next time you see somebody with a prosthetic leg, he might think it's because the person didn't eat their vegetables or had their leg bitten off by a lion, but at least he'll know what a prosthetic leg's about. And
Mo Sheena wants to know, what's your source? What motivates you?
Other people's success definitely motivates me, not just in sport. If I meet businessmen or people of industry or politicians that challenge the way people think, and people that have sacrificed a fair deal to achieve what they have, I believe that motivates me. If I see somebody else that has achieved something, I immediately look at what they've sacrificed and how they've got there. And if you want something bad enough and you're willing to work at it.
And in your head, Oscar, are you running for you or for South Africa?
I mean, I run, I'm a proud South African, but, in the morning when I wake up, I do it for myself. I'm the person that's in the gym. I'm the person that has to diet and work hard. And at the end of the day, we work for ourselves, and I'm very privileged every time I get the chance to represent my country. But 90% of our races in Europe on the season, we run individual races, and I'm very blessed to be in the position I'm in.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much, sir.
Oscar Pistorius, thanks to my guest, the Blade Runner. Thanks to you for watching, and remember, you can find me at King's Things on Twitter.